Welcome to the Cliffhangers and Cocktails podcast with USA Today bestselling authors Amy Sissel and Shea McLeod, brought to you by the Caftan Coven, where we talk books, drinkies, and general shenanigans.
Today we're going to talk about Elizabeth Hunter's latest novel, Blood Mosaic, and we'll actually be talking about that with Elizabeth Hunter later on in this episode, and we'll be mixing up our signature cocktail of the episode, the Bloody Bellinis, checking out our Oracle deck, and giving you some witchy tips.
Yeah. So, first, we always like to start our podcast with an affirmation that you can just kind of take into your day with you. So I found this great affirmation. I really love it because my word of the year, as we talked about on the last podcast, is thrive. So I found this affirmation. I give myself permission not just to survive, but to thrive.
I love that. I love that so much.
Well, I think sometimes you spend too much time focusing on just getting through the day rather than really doing it well and really enjoying the journey. So that's my whole shtick this year.
And I think it's great. And I think that sometimes getting through the day is thriving.
Sometimes it is.
but like I everybody's like, oh, I give 110% to whatever.
Yeah.
I am so against that. Because you can't always give 100%, and that's a stupid thing to strive for. Sorry, inspirational, motivational posters. But like it's important to pick what you want to thrive at, and what I have a problem that I like to call valedictorian syndrome, where I want to be the valedictorian of everything.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I think it's so important to choose where you want to thrive.
That it's okay, like, just kind of to neglect the back garden over here that grows the beets, and like focus your attention on the thriving of the pretty herbs.
Yes.
So you probably know now that I really hate beets.
I gather that. I was like, well, beets are delicious, Shea.
Beets taste like dirt, and that is a hill I will die on.
A beet hill.
A beet hill.
I had a beet martini once.
Ew.
I said that mostly to see what your face would do. If you guys are listening and not watching this on YouTube, and you want to know what Shea actually thinks of the idea of a beet martini, you need to head over to YouTube and check this out, because that was not a face of happiness. I didn't like it, to be clear. It was thick. Like, I think if it had just been like beet juice, it would have been good, because I love beets. I love the flavor of beets. I like the earthiness of it. I'm gonna have to go see what magical power there is in my beets.
Yeah,
but
it
sure
was
pureed beets.
Ew. Oh,
yeah,
that just doesn't belong. It doesn't belong in a drink.
I'm playing a thick martini.
I'm playing here with the view, just FYI, because I'm trying to decide if the speaker view or the gallery view is better. I don't know.
I think the speaker view is not the way we want to go.
Okay, let's do the gallery view so we can everybody can see both of us.
I don't know how many times you watched our last podcast.
Once briefly.
Okay, because I watched it about 15 times as I was editing, and I found the speaker view to be difficult to follow, because sometimes it wouldn't switch right away.
That's what I'm noticing, is it wasn't switching, and I realized that after the last time, and I realized it just now. It wasn't switching back and forth. So maybe we just do the gallery view.
Do we need to start over, or do you think we're good? I would rather not start over.
I'd rather not start over. Either they can find out what we talk about behind the scenes, or we can just cut that out.
I'm gonna cut it out.
I think it's fine just for now, and just going forward, we'll do the gallery view, because I don't really want to record over that either. I think it's fine. It's fine. Whatever. Okay. So now we did the affirmation. We talked about. Okay. So now we're going to talk about
beets.
We talked about beets. So speaking of beets, this has nothing to do with beets.
That's great segue.
I know, right? I come up with the best. I do all the best segues. So
she writes her own material, folks.
I'm available for parties and bat mitzvahs. Boom, boom. Um, yeah, so today, cool stones. Are you wearing any cool stones today?
Oh my God, I would love to tell you about all the cool stones that I'm wearing today, except
That you aren't
that
wearing
so I'm
any?
not filming at home, which is why the angles are all a little bit weird. And I know the sound was weird in our last episode, and my sound probably isn't any better today. Because I'm filming in this big empty hotel room.
Hmm.
And so one of the things that is at home on my dresser is my jewelry pouch that had all of my rings that I wear every time
Yeah,
I leave the house. The rings
yeah.
I wear every time I leave the house, all of my necklaces, the lapis crystal stuff that I had, and I had garnet as well. And garnet is like a garnet is kind of always a great stone to wear, and I'm gonna
Hmm.
have to find something so I can always have garnet on. So all I can tell you is that I had some cool stuff. It's at home.
Well, I do have
The
a
only thing I'm
cool,
wearing is my necklace that I never
cool
take
little
off.
necklace. I don't know if anybody can kind of see that with the,
Oh, that's beautiful.
but this stone here, I believe this one up here is a garnet, a raw garnet.
Nice.
I'm not sure, but because I can't remember, but I think that was just like a maybe a rose quartz or something. But this one here is a fuchsite.
Ooh.
Fuchsite is it's kind of a green stone, but it's found with like this um type of red stone called a ruby, but it's not a ruby as in a ruby. It's a different kind of ruby. I don't understand. It's like, sciencey stuff. They're like, it's a ruby, but it's not the ruby. I'm like, so basically, I really love the thing because fuchsite is about like it's this a stone that sparks joy, and it's a stone that's about bringing you closer with people that you love. So
Oh,
I kind of liked that. I thought that was a great stone. Plus, it's really, really pretty because it's got this sort of ruby red and sort of green. I don't know if
where did
anyone
you
could.
get that?
So there's a jeweler in Seaside called Molly Morgan Jewelry,
Uh-huh.
and they ship anywhere. Right now they have an Etsy store. Right now it's temporarily closed because they're shifting owners, but the new owner has been working at Molly Morgan for a long time and is really excited to continue. So I'm really excited
Okay.
because I get a lot of my jewelry from them. So it's very reasonably priced and they have just lots of gorgeous stones and it's all like silver jewelry. So
I love silver.
yeah,
All right.
same.
Well, we'll probably drop that link then into the show notes.
Yes, for
Thank you,
sure.
Molly Morgan.
Thank you, Molly Morgan. And they did not pay me to say that. I've just been buying from them for a long time, and they always write me a nice little note whenever I buy things again for.
However, if you want to pay us in rocks,
Yeah,
we like
we
shiny.
we like shiny rocks, so we're happy to take shiny rocks. We're like magpies or ravens. Give us shiny rocks.
Definitely a raven here. Um, so that's awesome. I don't write segues as well as Shea does. So I'm just gonna do a hard turn into today's cocktail. We are talking, like I said, with Elizabeth Hunter later today about her book Blood Mosaic. And I know the drink that she has is a black Manhattan. And it
Mm.
sounds so cool, but you guys, I hate Manhattan. Like you would not believe how much I hate a Manhattan. But I
I
wanted to
don't know
go with the
why.
whole
But I really don't like them. There's something in them that I don't like, and I don't know what it
yeah.
is.
I wanted to go like though with that theme because it's a
Ooh,
vampire book, and Elizabeth Hunter writes a lot of vampire books,
yes.
and she's also does a lot of paranormal women's fiction, um,
Yes.
and she's got I think nine books across three different series of paranormal women's fiction,
Mm.
but like her big main series I think is this world, the Elemental Mysteries world.
Hmm.
And she's got a number of series within that. So this is the first book in a new series, and it's about vampires. So I present to you my Bloody Bellini. Woo! And
Ooh.
Shea is Bloody Bellini.
My bloody
Um,
Bellini.
they're slightly different.
Mm.
Mine
Mm.
is gin and li- cherry liqueur with maraschino cherries syrup, um, and sparkling wine. And I know Shea's is a little bit different.
Mhm.
What did you have?
Well, last night I was experimenting. So I did sparkling wine, raspberry liqueur, and then the cherry syrup. And I tried that just that way. And then I put the gin in it. And I didn't love it because I think it just didn't quite go together. So today I made it with sparkling wine, cherry syrup, and blackberry juice. And
That's good. Oh, I'm
it's
so
really
excited that you're using
tasty.
blackberries because that's going to
Yeah.
come up later.
Woohoo!
Later. Good
See,
job.
I'm also psychic. No, not really, but
Um, so yes. So I just this is a really easy drink to make. I
Mhm.
didn't again, I am on location or just away from home. And so like I traveled with a coupe glass and some liquor in my purse,
Yes,
which
you
is
do.
so cool. Well, I had to pour it into something cool. Anyway,
Like
I just
posh
mixed the gin and the
1930s.
the cherry syrup in a tall glass with ice, straight into my coupe glass and topped with the bubbles. There are boozy maraschino cherries in here. You can't see
Mm.
them because they sunk to the bottom. But cherries are supposed to attract love,
Hmm.
and it's just a very, and I'm just kind of hoping that doesn't happen to me. Not trying to attract anything while I'm on vacation here, unless it's like maybe a murder of crows.
I
I would
mean,
love to be loved by a murder of crows.
same.
Um, anyway, yeah. So the gin, though, like gin is such a cool liquor,
Hmm.
and gin, which was called Juniper, and now Juniper and gin are different, similar but different liquors.
Right.
But
Hmm.
it all stems from like the juniper berry,
Right.
which has been used in medicine forever, basically.
Pretty
It's
much.
got a lot of medicinal properties. It
Hmm.
was used to treat kidney disease because it's a diuretic. Um, and that's been going on since the Middle Ages. In ancient Egypt, they used it for stuff that nobody's quite sure of, I think. And then during the Black Death, doctors would burn juniper in the houses where the sick were because and then they'd stuff it into their masks. This is a
And
plague mask,
I'm sure that really
in case you didn't know what
helped.
that was.
I'm sure juniper was very effective against the bubonic plague.
Well, I think like the plague masks were actually really useful because it helped with social distancing.
Sure.
And then not being able to smell the
I mean,
bubonic
that
plague.
right there is probably the most useful.
They did believe that the scent of it, they believed at that point that some people believed at that point that airborne scents were causing the plague or like exacerbating it somehow, so that masking that with perfume would be a preventative.
Yeah.
Um, and it's interesting. I got a lot of this information from a couple different websites, and I'll drop the links to those in the show notes so that I can properly credit where I'm getting this info. But the juniper bush has also been used in art to
Hmm.
represent chastity, which may like counteract the cherries here.
I
Um,
mean, yeah.
I'm hoping. But like gin as a whole, like for like spell work and magical powers, has been used as a cleanser, like a
Yes.
spiritual cleanser
Hmm.
and protection.
Yeah.
And I think that's really interesting, and
Yeah.
it makes me feel good about gin.
Yes.
I love
That's
gin.
that's
Like
generally how I use it in spell work is for protection and cleansing.
that's how I use it for everyday use. I just cleanse. It's like, people talk about doing those juice cleanses or whatever, which are generally dumb,
You're
or
like, I have
detoxes.
my juice cleanse. Here's my bottle of
And
gin.
like our livers detox things naturally, but I've decided that I'm going to do a gin cleanse.
I'm not sure that's a thing, but you do you, boo.
No, no, no. I'm sure it's a thing. I'm sure it's a thing. Whatever. All right. Anyway, I'm going to drink my drink here.
Okay, drink your drink.
My
I
drink.
really like this because it's like simple to make and you can kind of mix it up to your taste and your intention, like what you want your intention to be. Because like when I did it with the raspberries are also for love, excuse me, and fertility. Now, not just fertility like making babies, because I'm kind of like not interested in that. But fertility
This
in
is
life.
Shay's announcement.
we're not going there. But fertility can also be fertility in like, say, your career, or fertility in your like, some kind of endeavor that you're doing, whether it's art or, some kind of project you're doing. So it's not just the fertility of family, it's also general fertility. So that's why I tried raspberry last night. And I think raspberry would be good with the right liqueur, but I think mine's a little too cheap. I tried a new brand that I haven't tried before, and I'm like, yeah, I don't think I'm going to buy this one again.
Have some raspberry gin.
Ooh,
Oh, we
that would be
drank it
tasty.
once. We drank it once.
We
We
did.
made French 75s with raspberry
We
gin, and
did. Yeah,
yeah, that was really good.
that was good. That was
Just
very
you're
good.
welcome to Amy and Shea's cocktail memory lane. Um, so you also mentioned though that blackberries
Hmm. Yeah,
were part of that.
yeah. I decided to try it with blackberry juice. I don't know, it just kind of spoke to me. And so this morning I have blackberry juice in there.
Well, it's funny that that spoke to you so much,
Hmm.
because this episode, this is my segue, is coming out right before Imbolc.
Hmm.
And so I wanted to talk a little bit about that. And one of the fruits most associated with Imbolc is blackberries. And so when I was looking up recipes and like food that's associated with this holiday, because it is very much, we're still like doing our winter feasting kind of
Hmm.
situation.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of comfort foods, but a lot
Hmm.
of the drinks and desserts and salads have blackberries in them just because they're so tough
Hmm.
and they're good. Like it's hard to get out of blackberry season,
I
I
mean,
think.
they're tasty.
And they're so tasty. And like they're not associated with a season as much as like cherries are spring fruit, right? Like
Hmm.
or summer fruit.
Yeah.
And strawberries are like late spring, early summer fruit. Like a
Hmm.
lot of these berries, you just like you see strawberries and you're not like, oh yeah, that sounds like something you'd have in January. But but I think that for blackberries and any of the dark fruits,
Hmm.
they just are, I don't know, they're cozier.
They are.
And I wasn't having blackberries, so I
Hmm.
didn't do as much research as I could have on that aspect of it. And I should have known that you
I
were
was
gonna
going to
pull this
throw a
out
monkey
for me.
wrench and do my own thing.
Not a
Well,
monkey wrench. What's a good wrench?
well, I
I don't
never
know,
said a
something
monkey wrench was
positive.
bad. Like I don't know, a chocolate wrench. Oh, you don't really like chocolate that much.
I would have a chocolate wrench though with blackberry or cherry. I
Chocolate
don't
does go
dislike
very well
chocolate.
with blackberry. But yeah, blackberry is all about balance and self-love. So
Mm.
it's a very cozy, comforting, and it brings in that self-care vibe. And so it's actually really quite perfect for this time of year.
That really is. And like Imbolc is, we're at the halfway point between Yule and Ostara, between the
Hmm.
solstice and the equinox. And it's really when things start waking up.
Hmm.
And Imbolc comes from the Gaelic word, oh milk. Sorry, everybody.
God,
I'm like trying, it's oimilk. Oimilk. I don't speak Gaelic. I
no.
know nothing about Gaelic. I know how it's spelled. And we're just gonna skip past. I am planning on terribly mispronouncing something once every episode. Like this is my new goal. So that means in the belly,
Mm.
and it means it's associated with lactation of
Hmm.
ewes because this is about the time when lambing season starts.
Yeah.
So it's also so one of the big food associations is dairy food
Mm.
because it's that whole lactation thing. So sheep's milk, sheep cheese is probably a good thing that I should be eating
Mm.
immediately.
Absolute sheep cheese and blackberries would go
Oh my God.
amazing together.
Okay, listen, we
Look
have
at
to stop
me.
this podcast and I have to go get some blackberries and sheep
Sheep
cheese
cheese. Immediately.
immediately. No, I'll get those later. It'll be fine. And it's also Candlemas is what it's also known as, and that's more like as we move away from some of the more pagan traditions
Mm.
into when Christianity started merging with that.
Hmm.
And so it's the celebration of Bridget or Saint depending on where you're going with this. And so it is a festival of fertility because the earth
Mm-hmm.
is waking up, and magic and
Mm-hmm.
poetry and fire.
Oh, I'm gonna
So
bust out my poetry right away. No,
do you have a poem for us?
I'm a terrible poet. Like, even though I literally had a poem one time in like a publication, I did, but it was really bad. It was
Okay, but
objectively very bad.
I need to know more about where to find this.
Honestly, I don't, it's been so long. I don't remember. It was one of these publications where they just kind of like gather a bunch of random things and then they try to get, like, they publish it and then they try to, oh, hey, we'll send you a copy if you pay us an obscene amount of money. And
Oh yeah.
yeah, one of those. So it's not nearly
I
as impressive as it sounds, but yeah.
okay,
But it did
fair.
actually like get published in a thing. I don't know. It's probably out there somewhere. I mean, this was like 30 years ago, probably 25 years ago.
How about if we do a haiku?
Oh,
Shay is a poet. Why won't she tell us more, please? I am very sad. There we go. There's your haiku.
that is the best haiku ever. It really is.
Okay, so just a little bit more about Imbolc now that we've gotten the poetry part
Yeah.
about over. So lighting candles is a really big thing about it. Bonfires, if you've got the space, outside space, don't do it inside.
Don't do
Light a
bonfires
fire in your
inside.
fireplace if you have one. Make sure that you are very careful with fire because we don't want any of that to get out of control.
Mm-mm.
Um, but other things about Imbolc is it's time to clean and purify your home, maybe drink some gin, um, plant the seeds of your goals and intentions for the year. And
Mm-hmm.
if you're a gardener, it's time to start thinking about what you're going to plant. A lot of us are still in places where it's too cold to plant outside, but it's a good time to start germinating
Mm-hmm.
some seeds that you might want to transfer outside. I am going to repot all of my plants next week. They all need a new little bit of love, and that's going to be part of my spring cleaning process.
Well, as you
Um,
know, we've talked about, I basically have like, I don't have, you know how some people are born with a green thumb? I'm born
mhm.
with like the opposite. I have literally murdered cactuses. So, I won't be planting anything because I will probably murder it. Um, but I did do a vision board. So I think it's like really a really cool time to sit down and do a vision board or, write up things that you want to happen, like maybe a list of things that you want to happen this year or you want to bring into your life this year. So it's a really good time for that.
It is, and I also did a vision board, and I'm not quite done with it yet. I'm still fiddling with it. As Shea sent me hers, and I was all jealous because hers was prettier than mine. So then I have to work on it to make mine prettier. But the other thing that Shea did that I think is really great was that hers is specific. Like mine was like, oh, I want these things, like this general amorphous thing to happen. And I don't think that's specific enough. Like, I don't think that we need to be so specific that we're like on the 13th of February, 2025. I would like,
Precisely. $13.36 deposited into my account by the universe.
yes, and every minute thereafter. Like, but there needs to be more specificity than I would like to be successful as an author this year. Because
Yeah.
that's what does that mean?
Yeah.
Like
You need to
success
get
to me in 2025 means more than it means a different thing than it did in
right.
2017.
And success to me is going to mean a totally different thing than success to you. So I think like you need to kind of be a little bit more specific with the universe as to what success looks like to you.
Mm-hmm.
And so have a think about what success would mean to you this year and in the future. Like what does that look like? What would make you feel like you've reached that success? And of course, like you said, as the years pass, and you like being successful as an author looks very different to me than it did when I first started in 2011. In 2011, success was when the first 8 people bought my book, and I was like, oh my goodness, you know, it looks very different now. So
Yes, I would like to sell more than 8 books this year.
right, yes.
Although I'm fairly certain without looking that that's happened.
Yeah, I don't need to look to say that's happened, but yeah, I kind of like need to keep the lights on and things like that. So
Yes.
I need to sell more than 8 books. But it was super exciting in 2011.
No, for sure. I remember like I published, it's been almost exactly 8 years since I published my first book. And it came out the 27th, I think, of February in 2017. It was right after I turned 40. And so it was a big deal because I'd wanted to be published by the time I was 40. And I almost made it, but it was like 3 days late. Whatever. I hit publish before it came out. It's fine. And I never, like, that was the biggest level of enthusiasm I've ever had on a release day. Because everybody I'd ever met, I just made them buy my book. It's the only time I've been like super like do it, buy, because now I meet people sometimes and I'm like, oh, you don't have to. And I'm like, yes, you do. Go buy it. Go buy it right now.
We write awesome books. You must buy it.
Yeah. That was the best release day I had for a while. Because then I never told people to buy my book ever again. Ever. Buy my books. Yeah, you.
Yeah, you. Buy my books and your books. Buy our books.
That's right.
At some point, we should probably talk about our books a little bit more in depth, but we're not going to do that today.
Today has been all about Elizabeth Hunter.
Absolutely.
And so I'm really excited to welcome Elizabeth Hunter to our show. Elizabeth is an 11-time USA Today bestselling author of fantasy and romance. She's based in California and Addis Ababa. She's published over 50 works and sold over 2 million books worldwide. She's the author of The Elemental Mysteries, The Erin Chronicles. Some things, you don't ever say them out loud and you only read them in your head. And then you
said it right.
Okay, great. Thank you. The Shadowlands series and many other works of fiction. And not only is Elizabeth an amazing author, and full disclaimer, I do edit for her. So I get to see all the books like ahead of time. She's also just a really wonderful person. And I'm really excited to have her here today to talk about her newest book, Blood Mosaic.
Welcome, welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. I feel like I'm just having drinks with friends. So this is the best kind of interview.
Pretty much.
So tell us a little bit about that cocktail.
So this is a Black Manhattan. I was raised very properly. So you drink whiskey cocktails in the winter, gin cocktails in the summer, as you should. So a Black Manhattan is really just like your classic Manhattan. But instead of using vermouth, you use an Amaro, which is an Italian liquor, and a little bit of bitters, and it has a lovely, lovely, delicious cherry garnish, and it's delightful. I enjoy it. You have to like whiskey though.
I like a whiskey. I mean,
I'm breaking some rules here,
and that's okay.
I'm very specific with my whiskey. I don't like rye. I don't like bourbon. But so I'm breaking some rules here, and I'm drinking gin.
You should use a rye whiskey. This one you should probably use a rye whiskey. But I'm out of rye, so I just used Jameson's. So.
Oh well, I could have done that. Love Jameson's.
Yeah, Jameson's.
Oh, now I'm bummer. I'm bummed. I looked up the recipe.
I think the reason I don't like Manhattans is don't they usually use they don't use sweet vermouth, they use the dry vermouth.
Use a dry vermouth.
And I don't like dry vermouth.
That's what you like.
So I can do what I want.
Not you can use a sweet vermouth if you want. The Amaro has a little bit, it has some sweetness. It has, and I think that's why you add a little bit of bitters just to counter that. So it's a bittersweet cocktail, and it has some kind of caramelly flavors as well, which makes it just it's a nice sipping cocktail. It really is. I enjoy it.
Maybe that's my problem. I tend to guzzle my cocktails. So
that might be a problem. I'm drinking gin because I don't know what season it is, apparently.
And I'm drinking sparkling wine because I do what I want.
Yeah.
You do what you want.
I do what I
But
want.
And
I'm
it's
drinking
pretty.
my Bloody Bellini. I'm very vampiric over here, going with the theme.
I love it.
So.
I love it.
So let's talk a little bit about your author journey. Like, when did you begin writing?
I am an old lady indie publisher at this point because I published my first book in 2011.
Same.
Which was so long ago.
Yeah. That was a million years ago.
You and I have I think, very similar kind of writing timelines. I feel like we both were in that first kind of wave, not the very first.
No, like a little after.
Kind of the early adopters.
Yeah.
Early not pioneers, but early adopters. But before that, I was a business writer. So I did very exciting things like employee manuals, sales proposals. My safety program was groundbreaking. Yeah. But you know, I tell people all the time it's actually, business writing is not a bad background to have because it teaches you a lot about just mechanics. And you're writing for a reluctant audience. So grabbing attention, because it's still a story, isn't it? Like, it's still in any kind of writing is a story. You're guiding your audience through a journey, whether that journey is through a cool vampire fantasy or how to report human resources violations, whatever it might be. Like, you're still, so even business writing, I feel like no writing experience is wasted. But
Agreed.
I started writing. So I was writing, I was doing business writing. People are always like, oh, were you one of those kids that like were always writing stories? And it's like, no, I really wasn't. I didn't start writing creatively until my 30s. And then it was like, I started writing fan fiction, which was super fun. I wrote in the Southern Vampire Mysteries fandom. Yes. Love that whole community. Not True Blood. Okay, there's a difference. There's a difference between the SVM people and the True Blood people. There was kind of like a little tension there. So I wrote SVM fan fiction, loved it, and then I was like, I feel like I could like write my own stories. And so it just kind of grew from there. And I never even thought about going traditional. I knew nothing. About like, because I had never wanted to be a writer.
Yeah.
That was never like, I had no idea. I had no idea that like you were supposed to, submit to agents and then I had no idea about any of that stuff. And then, but I was just out to lunch with a friend of mine who was also in the fan fiction community. And she's like, have you heard about indie publishing? Have you heard about like, you can just put your books on Kindle Unlimited. Like,
and you're like, tell me more.
Because she was telling me, and Lydia, like one of the few people that I've ever named a character after in my books. Her name is Lydia. And she was saying like, I enjoy your fanfic updates as much as I'm looking forward to like my next library book.
Awesome.
She's like, I really think you could write amazing. I really think there's like a market for your fiction. Like, you're a really good writer. And I was like, wow. And so I genuinely, like, I put A Hidden Fire, which is my first book. I put A Hidden Fire up on Kindle. This was before KU. KU didn't even exist then. I put it up on Kindle, and I thought, if I make anything, cool.
That was my same thing. It was like, if I sell like a couple copies, it's going to be so awesome.
Yeah. I mean, like, somebody is actually like, I'm already posting this stuff on my blog for free. Like, if somebody is going to pay me for it, that's amazing. But then within 6 months, I had published 3 books, and I was making as much as I had been when I was a teacher. When I was a middle school teacher, which is what I had done before business writing, and I had an interesting employment journey, but which is good for writers, actually. That's actually really good.
Yes.
If you can't settle in a job, that might mean you need to be a writer. That's my life. That's my life advice. but like I got so lucky, you guys. I feel like, and I think anyone who doesn't acknowledge that luck plays a part in all of this is full of it, because there's just an element of luck involved. Yes, you can plan, yes, you should have a business plan and be a professional and work hard and work on your craft and all of those things. But I know amazing writers who don't sell as well as I do.
Yeah.
That are as good as storytellers or better.
Yeah.
And so to not acknowledge that like part of this is just luck is nonsense. You have to.
Definitely. There is for sure like a certain element of that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, there's
I got so lucky.
Yeah, you can't ever say that. I think that, oh, if you do this thing, and this thing, you will be successful. I mean, because the luck always comes into it too, which for me is, manifestation universe stuff. But so tell us a little bit more about this book that we're talking about today, Blood Mosaic. Tell us kind of about the setting and the characters and kind of how you came up with it.
So this is a vampire fantasy novel, contemporary fantasy. If it was 10 years ago, we might call it an urban fantasy. Even though it's not entirely in an urban setting. But it is about, it is a first in series, but it is in a larger elemental vampire world. So the book I mentioned, A Hidden Fire, was the first one in that universe.
Okay.
But I structured the series so that like there's different entry points. So there's like series within the universe.
Right.
So this is a first in series. If you've never read any of my books, you can totally pick this up, read it. You're not going to get lost or anything. But it is about two characters. The female main character is a human bookkeeper who is, I think, very relatable. She is dealing with employment fraud, you guys. That's, isn't that the premise of any amazing urban fantasy? Dealing with employment fraud?
Employment fraud.
It's a compelling.
It's so
problem.
Sexy.
No, like, it's so sexy. That's what I hear all the time. I'm like, oh my God.
I've got embezzlement in at least one book, so I'm there.
Yeah. So she's a bookkeeper, and she has been unknowingly working for a vampire and embezzling money, and she didn't realize what she was getting into. And then stupidly, her old boss doesn't pay her.
Well, see, now that's just dumb. If you're going to make somebody do bad things,
exactly. That is the first rule of organized crime: always pay your bookkeeper. So she tracks down kind of the big boss, who is the male main character, and that is Oleg, and he is a fire vampire, and he's the vampire lord of the Kievan Rus. So this is all in Eastern Europe, the Black Sea region, primarily. Ukraine, Southern Russia, Romania, that whole area. And he kind of rules, and he's very old. He's over 1,000 years old, and he rules kind of this entire area. So there's a little bit of organized crime vibes going on, but he's mostly legitimate. And she tracks him down and basically says, like, hey, I didn't get paid. I want you to pay me. And basically like calls him out and says, like, listen, I want my wages. And she realizes, and he realizes that, she knows about the embezzlement, because his daughter, his vampire daughter, was the one she had been working for, and she had been stealing money from him. And so Tatiana, our female main character, she knows where the money is. And so they strike a deal. She still has no idea that she's striking a deal with a vampire. She strikes a deal and immediately knows, like, oh, this was probably a very bad idea. But like, you got to pay the rent, right? And so she gets drawn into this very complicated world, borderline criminal. And she's just like, I'm just trying to do my job and get out of here. And then, of course, everything kind of goes to shit. And of course, there is this amazing sexual chemistry between the two of them. This is a much hotter book than I usually write, because they do just have a very intense physical connection. The chemistry is all over the place with these guys. And I don't want to tell you too much, but it definitely it ends on somewhat of a cliffhanger. There's 3 books planned. It's a complicated, messy, delicious relationship. And I think readers, like, it's one of those things where there's no good guy, there's no bad guy. You love both of these characters equally, and they're both super messed up. And so I love writing complicated, messy people.
Yeah, well, aren't we
I
all
was
complicated and messy?
I was telling Shea a little bit about because obviously I've read it, and I own it, and I've read it again because
And
I always like to see what happens after I edit.
started reading it, like just started reading it. So I'm like
All right.
just into it. Yeah.
Did describe Zara that as cuckoo banana crackers.
Cuckoo banana crackers. Yep.
Yeah,
Cuckoo
that
banana
would be
crackers.
Oleg's vampire daughter who Tatiana was working for. Yeah, so she's the antagonist in this book, and yeah, she's cuckoo banana pants, but also like in some ways kind of sympathetic. Like,
oh yeah, I feel bad for her, but she is cuckoo.
Yeah. I was talking with Amy, and I was talking with another like beta reader. I have a continuity reader for this series because it is like, it's such a huge sprawling universe at this point. And I have not read my books nearly as much as my continuity reader has read them. Like, she is an expert. Like, if I have a question, I can go and ask her because she will know.
That's a good idea.
And so I was talking with her about it, and she's like, you do realize, like, you write a lot of women villains. And I'm like, okay, yes, but I think part of it is I really just enjoy writing women baddies because I think the motivations can be so complicated. I love writing women. I love writing men too, but I love writing women, and I am a woman. And so I feel like I can get into the head of a baddie,
right,
if she's female, so much better.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
I don't hate women. I love women. That's why I make you all bad guys. No, they're not all bad guys, but there are a lot. I do have a lot of female baddies. It's fun. It's fun. Like the hashtag morally gray men. I'm like, no, give me morally gray women.
Yeah,
absolutely,
for sure. I think they're just much more complicated, complex, and interesting, most specifically in fiction, although in real life sometimes as well. But
I'd rather deal with a woman villain in real life.
I don't want to dismiss male characters' emotional journeys, because I do feel like, particularly in fantasy, sometimes we do tend to write guys a little one note, and it's like the trend of like the alpha hero, baddie, and I was just like, that's kind of like, it's just kind of boring. It's boring, right? Like, I don't know, man. Like, I have amazing men in my life. I'm married to an amazing man. I'm raised another one, and like, they're complicated too. Like, there are a lot of different shades. I think just because I am a woman, like, for me, it's easier to connect with the feminine layers. And masculinity is kind of, it's harder for me to penetrate on an emotional level, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
But yeah, like, I remember when my first book came out, when A Hidden Fire came out, and Giovanni is also a fire vampire.
Amy, for those who aren't watching this on YouTube, Amy's fanning herself.
Yeah, she is hot. Oleg is also a fire vampire. So these guys are like two, but very, like, in a lot of ways, very opposite, because Oleg is much more emotionally available, I want to say, which is not to say all good emotions, but Giovanni was very much like very closed, very closed. And I remember so many people, like so many readers, like in reviews, like, such an alpha male character. I'm like, okay, yes, but I mean, alpha in a dominant, very strong way, yes. alpha in I'm going to assert my dominance over other people
Not an
constantly.
alpha hole.
Yeah,
Not that.
he's very quiet. That's the thing. Like, and I think honestly, most, and this is probably a reflection of my own experience, but the strongest men that I've ever known in my life are usually pretty quiet.
Oh yeah,
They don't
agreed.
shout.
Mm-mm.
They don't need to.
Mm-mm.
And I would say that's something that Oleg and Giovanni definitely have in common. Like Oleg isn't gonna shout because he's just going to get in there and do what he wants to do.
Mm-hmm.
Whether Tatiana likes it or not, which is like, that's an issue, right?
Right.
That's an
something that's
issue if you're
definitely going to
building a
come up.
relationship. Yeah.
I don't want to
Gonna
put
be
any spoilers out there,
problematic.
but that's something that will come up. What's
Yeah.
the most interesting or unusual research that you've ever done for a book? I mean, anything we all do, like people are watching our searches because we're authors and we search for weird stuff.
Yeah.
I'm on
So,
a watch
like,
list somewhere, I'm sure of it.
Like, generally speaking, general a very common search that I do just for my own personal, for my book series, would be like how to sneak into various countries without being allowed in, which I'm sure
nice.
has put me on several watch lists. But you know, if you're talking about vampires who don't necessarily have like modern
Mm-hmm.
identities, or they just don't want to. This one was very difficult because when this is set in a region that is currently at war, like actively
Mm-hmm.
at war in Ukraine and in southern Russia. And but it had to be set there because when I started setting up this series, it was 2013 and there wasn't a war going on. And
Mm-hmm.
so, and yet negotiating. Now, this book does kind of go in the past. So this is set not in the present day, but about in 2013. And so it was going back and researching, okay, what could you fly a private plane into Russia from Ukraine at that time? I decided that yes, you probably could if you paid off the military. So, you know,
yeah, sure.
Bribery.
Which if you're Oleg, you're absolutely gonna do. Like you just
bribery always works.
Bribery always works. Bribery works very well for vampires, put it that way. Not for human beings, but in fantasy and urban fantasy, we're gonna say bribery works very well for vampires.
Exactly.
I'm gonna say that if you have enough money as a human being, it's still gonna work.
And if you have
Amy came out to
money
play
because you've been alive for 1,000 years and you're good at saving, you know.
Yeah.
I read somewhere that if you're a 500-year-old vampire and you're broke, then you should walk into the sun because you have done something wrong with your life.
Clearly failed in some way.
Yes.
Yeah. Most interesting. I met my husband on a research trip, so that was very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Way to come home with a souvenir.
Yes. Yeah. Actually, it took some doing to actually bring him home. That's a whole other story. But I had the opportunity, and I don't think you can. It's more difficult to go now, but it was about 11 years ago. I was traveling in China where my brother lives, and we were able to go to Xinjiang, which is the Uyghur Autonomous Region in the far west of China, which I don't think is as easy to travel to now. I don't know that you're not allowed at all, but I know that internal travel restrictions have gotten more complicated. So I got to go to Kashgar, which is a very, very old city on the Silk Road. That was absolutely fascinating and one of my most favorite research trips. The cultural and the ethnic mix there is so cool and interesting. So that was really fun. And then Ethiopia, obviously I've traveled very extensively in Ethiopia now, and it's one of those countries that I think no matter how many times you go, you're always going to discover something new. It's just, you're talking about the cradle of humanity. The age, the age, the depth of culture, the language, it's a fascinating place. I feel really fortunate to be able to live there part of the year.
Super cool.
Can't wait to come visit you there. Like, top of my list.
Coffee, food. Traffic?
Every time you
No,
go and I see your posts,
there's no
about
traffic at all.
No traffic at all. Oh, really?
Traffic at all. Traffic paradise.
So if this series, like if this book was like picked up for TV, who would play your main character? Who would play Oleg?
I don't know, because I am such a doofus about like modern actors. I don't know any of like the hot young things anymore.
You don't have to know a hot young thing.
I mean, it can be Cary Grant.
He's not a hot young thing. He's not a hot young thing. I think, I actually think like Viggo Mortensen, like 10, Ooh. Like in like Lord of the Rings era, Viggo Mortensen would be an amazing.
Yes, please.
Sign me up, please. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. I think he's got that quiet intensity about him. Like, again, like same kind of very dominant, but very quiet, very subdued, but also like that man's going to do what he wants. And
he is going to blow some shit up or like chop some heads.
Throws fire at some people.
Absolutely.
I'm trying to think about who I would pick to play Tatiana, and I got nothing. Like, because again, I don't know the hot young things other than us.
Yeah, and she is quite young. She's I think 28. 26. I think she's 26. She's a little bit younger, but she's definitely an old soul. It's so funny because I think of 26 as being quite young for a heroine. And apparently, like, a lot of the romantic fantasy stuff now, like, all the main characters are 18 or 19. And I'm like, what?
Ew.
Now I have a kid age. I can't.
Ew.
That's nothing. That's nothing. You're a baby.
I think back to when I was like 18 or 19, and I'm like, oh no. Oh no. No.
Yeah. Like on the one hand, I don't want to condescend to young people, because I think young people I think my son's generation is so incredible. I think there's so many amazing, cool things happening with his generation.
I agree.
But just like on a life experience level, Tatiana is 26. She's been very much a caretaker to her mother and her entire family for, basically her entire adult life, which is short, but feels long when you're a caretaker. And so I definitely would call her an old soul. So, what Elle Fanning, maybe.
Oh, yeah.
As an actress. Yeah, I think she's young, she's blonde and blue-eyed, so that's Tatiana. And also like I think she has that ability to be like, she looks very kind of like bright and young and innocent, but she has that old hole in her eyes.
She has that real depth.
I think yeah, definitely. So I think she might be that would be a good pick.
I want to watch this so badly.
What?
I'm like, yes.
I really want this.
Where do we watch this? Who do we have to bribe?
No, I mean, that would be cool, but that's complicated. And I also I just think like doing any kind of adaptation of fantasy is always so complicated and difficult, because any fiction, right? The book is always better because we have it in our minds. And I think particularly in fantasy, it's so hard to nail it because the special effects and the magic systems and all of this, this, like in particular, this world is an elemental. So in this fictional universe, which again is big. This is first in series, but it's a big fictional universe. So every vampire is connected to an element. And they have like this kind of hidden connection to earth or water or wind or what have you. So there's not that, this might be like easier to adapt than like the Erin Chronicles, which is my series that deals with like fallen angels and all of that. And they have like tattooed magic systems where like the tattoos glow. And so there's not as obvious a magic, but like it's still hard to do fireballs shooting from somebody's hand.
Sure.
and make it look not cheesy.
Yeah.
So
yeah. I gotta say, like, one of the things I love most about Elizabeth's writing is her world building is like the most incredible thing. Like, she's got this massive world with all of these spin-offs. It started with A Hidden Fire, and like all of the series that are related to that and that are interconnected. The world building is so amazing. And
thank you.
Like, I cannot think of very many other authors that make this incredible world that it's, I don't even know if I have words as a writer. I don't know if I have words to speak about how good her world building is. Like, it's such a major skill, and it's incredible. So if you haven't read anything by Elizabeth Hunter, like this, and you love good world building and fantasy, this is where to go. Like, the first book that I picked up was the first book in the Erin Chronicles, and that's really good. And that series is amazing. Everything, I've read every book Elizabeth's written.
Did
but
you
like,
hate me?
What?
Did you hate me? The end of the scribe. Do I have this? Well, this is the old cover. This is probably the one you got.
Yeah, that's the one I have
They're
on the shelf at home
now, but
and yes, I hated you. Yes, I hated you. Yes, it was pain at first read, but also
did I heal
never
you
stopped reading your
though?
books.
Did I heal you? Okay. You can
You have,
hate me as
like,
long as I heal you.
I have read everything you've written. There's a couple things that I do hate about you as an author, things that you've done.
I didn't like the shade
Yeah.
she threw at caftans in the paranormal women's fiction series. What was it, Illyrio or something?
Vista Delirio.
Vista Delirio, that's it. Yes.
And yet I love a caftan. Don't get me wrong. I own many of them.
I laughed so hard when I read her griping about the caftan and like the bed sheet. Like
there is an element. Okay, to be fair, I wear caftans around my house. If I had to wear them out in public, and I have worn them out in public, but there's a certain amount of like free boobing, so to speak.
yes.
That I'm just like, I'm not sure I'm entirely comfortable with that. Like, I like a little more security when it comes to being out in public. So the Vista Delirio series, I have to say, like, that is just my love letter to Palm Springs and the weirdness that is Palm Springs.
I loved that.
Literally
series. So good.
days ago, my sister and I were working in the kitchen and it was cold. I live in an old house and it's an old Spanish house. And so it's very hard to heat this house. And it does. I live in Central California. I'm not in Southern California. Thank God right now. But I live in Central California, and so we're quite close to the mountains. So it does get very cold here sometimes. And we're both like, and because I have an old house, I actually have a fireplace in my kitchen that is a wood burning fireplace that we still use.
Wow.
It's the most effective thing for heating that part of the house. And so we were in there like huddling by the fire and working. And she looked at me, she's like, you know what would make all of this better? If we were in Palm Springs. I'm like, you're so right. It would be so much better. We were in Palm Springs. We love Palm Springs. But I will say one of the things I love most about Palm Springs is how weird it is. So all of if you like Shea, if you like Amy's stuff, like their paranormal women's fiction is so fun. And like writing older heroines is totally my jam. I love it. It's so funny. and it's so relatable and I love it. But like all of my paranormal, I have 3 different trilogies of paranormal women's fiction, and they all are in different parts of California that I love. So like my first one was up in the mountains in the Sierras. My family has a cabin up there, so I've spent a lot of time up in the mountains. That's the Glimmer Lake series. And then the Central Coast, I have family over there, and so I've spent a lot of time on the Central Coast. And that's the Moonstone Cove series. And then Vista del Rio is named after this very kooky fictional neighborhood in Palm Springs, where like there's random ghosts just like wandering around, because of course there are. It's Palm Springs.
Why not?
If you were going to spend eternity somewhere, wouldn't you like spend it in Palm Springs with crazy
somebody who may or may not
and,
be
like,
Marilyn Monroe?
Yeah, exactly. Totally. And then also like, but also like purebred dogs and llamas, because of course.
Why
not? Because why not?
Yeah, that was great.
So if you know me, you know I love dogs. And so the 3rd book in that series, I feel like we made a big jump, but paranormal women's fiction is fun to talk about. So the 3rd book in that series is 100% my homage to Christopher Guest's amazing movie, Best in Show.
Oh my God, that movie.
What is more hilarious than a dog show?
It's so
And I have actually been to dog shows. It was hilarious. And like put a telepath in the middle of a dog show. I didn't make her animal psychic. In retrospect, I should have. Obviously, I should have made her an animal psychic.
That would have been so funny.
Now maybe I need to write another one. No,
do it.
Just to have an animal psychic.
The thing the llama would say, though, I don't think we need to know the inner thoughts
of the llama.
I think Paco the llama, you're right. Maybe we don't need to know his internal monologue, because honestly, it's not going to be flattering to any human around him.
It will not.
He's very judgmental. He's a very judgmental llama.
Yes.
Actually, no, he's an alpaca. So he's even more, he would be judging us for calling him a llama because he's an
I'm
alpaca.
so sorry. Paco, please.
Yeah, Paco the alpaca. Yeah.
Can't believe I got that wrong. I'm so embarrassed.
I know. I can't believe I let it slide. Like, especially considering my hair, which is very alpaca-ish.
Got the best hair. We could go on about
So
your
you
hair.
see like curly bang?
Huh?
You can't unsee it.
Oh yeah, well.
Yeah.
Alpaca-ness. Yeah.
So what are
a
your
couple
plans
years
for
ago,
the rest of the
a friend of mine texted. Sorry, go ahead.
No, please continue.
Oh, I just said a friend of mine texted me a couple years ago and said every teenage boy looks like an alpaca now, and I'm like, you're not wrong.
Yeah, with the
you're
little
not wrong.
Curls on the top of the head thing.
Yeah, the curls on the top. Which is like, coming from a curly-haired family, both of my brothers had curly hair in high school, and they kept it so short because that was the Abercrombie era, right? So straight hair was everything, the straight floppy, surfer hair. And they're like, we missed out. If they would have been teenage gods had they been teenagers during this era, or at least I'm sure they wanted to think that.
So what are your plans for the rest of this year? This year is so new. What are your plans for 2025 in terms of writing?
I actually do have a plan. I actually can tell you what my plans are. Usually it's like, well, I'm going to work on this thing and then that thing and then the other thing. But I have 2, I will grab the other one. I have 2 first in series, right? I have 2 first in series. This is a portal fantasy. First Light is a portal fantasy. It came out last year, October. Trilogy planned for this. And then Blood Mosaic came out in December. I usually don't release books that close together, but it just kind of happened that way. So I am working on these 2 series. These are both first in series. So like, if you haven't read my books, you can pick up, if you're more of a fantasy and dragons and unicorns and fairy person, you can grab First Light.
Wait, are there unicorns?
There are unicorns in First Light. Yeah. There's badass unicorns. I guess so.
Oopsie.
They're not a huge part. They're not a huge part. They're kind of background characters, but there are unicorns.
Shoot.
Yeah, I don't know how you missed
Sorry.
that.
I
I've
have
edited
failed.
all of Elizabeth's books. I know
Glad you weren't my
everything.
only editor for this one.
Listen, I edited a lot of things, okay?
Oversight. It's set in Scotland. There have to be unicorns. It's
course
set
I
in
do.
Scotland,
You know what?
like
I
an
love
alternate
that.
reality
I was
Scotland.
just pretending.
Yes. Yeah. So that's First Light. So I'm working on the second book for that one right now, actually.
Ooh, that's
and then I'm
exciting.
going to work on the second book for this one, third book. So I'm just this year I'm focusing on these two series. So it's fun. It's fun to be writing something like a new fictional world. I finished my Cambia Springs world, which is my shapeshifter world. So that kind of opened things up for me to work on something new, so I'm just focusing on these two. So it's all about, portal fantasy and vampires for the next year for me. So I'm excited about that.
So
That's
where
really
can
fun.
people find out more about you and your books?
I am on all the places. Facebook, I have a wonderful Facebook group called Hunter's Haven. So please check that out. I am on Instagram. I'm gonna start I have been doing lives on Facebook, and then Facebook got absolutely terrible about letting people know when people were going live. So I think I'm gonna try and do Instagram. We'll see. But elizabethhunter.com is a great place. I have a newsletter. I also have a wonderful direct shop if you would prefer not to buy from big corporate baddies and buy direct from independent authors. You can do that if you go to elizabethhuntershop.com. I have ebook bundles there that are actually a really good deal for like some of my older series, especially if you're interested in the elemental vampire world.
You should be.
These two, the new series, so all my backlist is wide and you can buy it direct from me. The new series are available in Kindle Unlimited though. So these two guys are available in KU, which if you want it, like if you're if I am a new to you author, like I totally get like borrow it in KU. Like I totally get that. I think KU is such a great discovery tool for readers. And then what I find is a lot of people who discover me there, like then they go and buy a lot of my stuff, my direct store.
Right.
So that's Elizabeth Hunter shop. And then elizabethhunter.com is my website. So you can find more about me there.
We'll be sure to drop all those links in the show notes so people can find you nice and easy peasy.
Very cool. And then both of these have this very cool, these are both special edition hardcovers. If you see, this has a mosaic.
Ooh,
that's pretty.
And then like it's even prettier when you open it.
There's like little flames.
Oh my gosh. If you are listening and not watching on YouTube, you need to go check this out visually immediately.
Yeah, it is really gorgeous with marbleized edges and like flames on the
So this
chapter
is
headings.
so Oleg is in addition to being a badass vampire lord and a fire vampire, he's also a mosaic artist. So I had an artist, my edge artist did a mosaic fire pattern on the side of the hardcover special edition. And it's really, really beautiful. And then for First Light, it has this beautiful leaf pattern on the edge. And then when you open it, it is. And I love these printed edges because it sometimes, and don't get me wrong, like I love a sprayed edge. They're so pretty on the shelf. But then like often when you open them, like when you're actually reading, you can't really see the pattern very much. So I love these printed edge, like they call them printed edges or forced edges. So like when you're actually reading the book, you get the experience of seeing the prettiness.
That's so cool.
That's and these are both available at elizabethhuntershop.com as well.
Awesome.
Well, thank you so much, Elizabeth, for hanging out with us. This has been such a fun conversation. I really appreciate you taking time to talk to us.
Thank you so much for having me. It's so fun to see you guys and talk with you. And cheers.
Yes.
To books.
Cheers to books.
Cheers to books. And isn't she great, by the way?
She is.
She's so great.
She is. I was really excited to talk to her.
Yeah. So moving on, not really segueing away from Imbolc, but into our Oracle card. So I brought, y'all are going to get me, hopefully not sick of this, but sick of me saying this series which you
Whoops.
can't see. Ooh, background.
Hold it closer. There you go. There you go.
The Seasons of the Witch.
Mm-hmm.
Juliet Diaz's Seasons of the Witch, and this one is with Lorraine Anderson, illustrated by Tijana Lukovic. Tiana Lukovic. We'll go with that. So it's the Imbolc deck, and I have all of the holiday decks now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very
I'm
excited about it.
super jealous.
And these are really beautiful. They have the full moon surrounded by candles on the back, and they've got the blue foil edges. And so I'm just gonna draw us a card. This is really gonna be about how, as we're turning the corner away from the dark and further into the light, we're getting closer to the equinox. This is kind of, I feel like, what we're starting. This is what we're starting. This is what we can do to grow into our nascent. I had words. I'm not a professional worder.
Wait, you're not? Wait, oh no.
I'm not a professional worder. Our nascent plans, our nascent intentions.
Yes.
This is where we're starting. This is the path that we're going towards. So that's what I want. So I shuffled, I cut, I turn. Forged in fire. Your strength was crafted through adversity and a mastery that only you can behold. And it's really beautiful. There is a woman kind of under the ground with long white hair. She's got a crescent moon on her chest, and she's holding a ball of fire above her that's kind of breaking out of the ground, and it's heating a cauldron that has 5 swords in it. There's a moth flying over here. There's a full moon above it. There's candles all over. We talked about this being Candlemas. There's a lot of candle symbolism for Imbolc. And then the ground is just like alive and awake. There's insects and worms and everything. It's very fertile, fertile land.
Nice.
And there's, lilies of the valley, which are one of my favorite flowers, are growing. And
they're
they're early.
So hold up the cards for the YouTubers. There we go. Oh, wow.
I will also,
that's fantastic.
This will be on our social media.
Yes.
But I'm telling you what I saw. So let's see what Juliet wants us to think. That's weird. But this card is about mastery of skills, completion of tasks. So it guides you to look at the smaller details rather than focusing on the bigger picture. So don't take shortcuts. It's better to take the time to do something right than to try to get there faster. And I think that's it's great for literal, if you're hiking, don't take the shortcut because there's going to be a bear. Land.
There will be a bear.
No, I was for the landscape, ecologically speaking, if you're taking shortcuts and you're not staying on the trails, you're contributing to erosion and it makes things more dangerous. And also you're missing out maybe on some good views. And so doing things right, maybe it takes longer, but it makes it better. It makes it stronger. Yeah, it helps with that mastery of skills, and it makes you stronger. And you don't want to miss out on something. You never know what you could miss out on if you're trying to shortcut through life.
That's very true. Because usually when I'm not shortcutting through life, literally speaking, I get often lost. But that's when you find the most interesting things.
That's true. My daughter and I have been talking a lot about going on a road trip, and she's opposed to it because she's no fun. And that doesn't matter. I'm gonna trick her into it. It's cool. I'm her mom. But I want to go to South Dakota and road trip there. And I grew up in South Dakota. It's not, and my next book series that I'm writing, it takes place in Western South Dakota. So it's research and also going to see some friends and taking her on this journey as we're getting ready to perhaps leave the country. And one of the things that I remember, and she is not into this idea at all, but again, she doesn't have a driver's license, so we'll see what happens, is my dad grew up in the Black Hills of South Dakota, and we would get in his pickup and just drive. And we did this everywhere that we went. We call it taking the scenic route. Yeah. Where we'd see a road or okay, which way? and we'd take turns picking a direction, straight, right, left. And sometimes that ended poorly. One time we got to a road and it just ended, and we were already on the part of the road that was just grass with tire tracks. And so we had to reverse like for 1.5 miles.
Oh my goodness.
And
yeah.
I'm not telling Liana that story because
no, probably not. At least not until she's trapped in the car with you.
She's a city girl, and I'm like, where did this happen? I mean, I realized she's lived in Portland her whole life.
Yeah.
But like, I raised a girl who doesn't know anything about growing up in the country, and I'm like, it is time for that to change. Let's have some farm experiences. And she's like, oh no, thank you.
Well, here's the funny thing is that I was raised kind of between the two worlds of city and country, and my family is very into country. They love a country drive. We did this so often when I was a kid, so many drives. Sundays were often just random drive. Oh, let's just go. And it was that same thing, you end up in the sticks with banjos playing. But I am a city girl, like to the bone. Even though I know things like how to start a fire, how to cook over a fire, how to grow a garden, even though I kill everything. I know these things, but
if there's an apocalypse, you want me on your side.
Yeah, well, I will tell you, I can make soap, for instance. And yes, I do know how to make soap without, the fancy modern way, technically. But awesome. But like, why?
Well, I can kill animals and make them edible.
Yes,
and I'm very good at growing things in the ground.
See, I will need you for the growing things in the ground. Absolutely. Because I'll make soap, you grow things in the ground.
I'll be the hunter.
Hunter.
The hunter. Listen, I'm almost done with my cocktail.
Oh, so I'm getting low here too. So
that might mean it's time to wrap things up and say goodbye.
Maybe it is. I think maybe it is because we are going way off topic here.
Way off topic. Sorry. Yay, Imbolc. Go be strong. Start your journeys. Do some cleansing. Drink the gin, or check out whatever you want.
Check out Elizabeth Hunter's books. We're going to drop all the information, how to find her books, in the show notes. We're going to drop the recipe there. We're going to drop all the stuff, how to find us, how to find the Oracle decks. Smash that like button.
Please share this with your friends and your families and, I don't know, your work acquaintances, your mortal enemies. Subscribe. What did the werewolf YouTuber say at the end of his live stream?
I don't know.
Like and subscribe.
Oh no, that's not right.
All right, bye everyone. Thanks for listening.